Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating source document that details three profound, sudden shifts in human consciousness. We spend so much of our lives operating on this surface level, just kind of going through our everyday routines. But what happens when the fabric of that reality is suddenly and violently torn right open? Well, our source text for this explainer looks at exactly that. We'll be exploring three distinct metaphysical events that literally challenge the very limits of our subjective reality. Right from the jump, the text sets this incredibly dramatic tone with a quote. Some experiences arrive quietly, some arrive gradually, and some arrive like lightning. We're definitely not talking about a slow, deliberate journey of enlightenment through decades of quiet study here. No way. The source draws a really stark contrast between gradual learning and sudden, completely unavoidable events. We're talking about moments that strike without warning, fundamentally altering how a person understands the universe, all in a matter of seconds. Chapter 1: A Cosmic Highway Awakening in Rush Hour Traffic. Let's get right into this first initiation. So this happens in literally the most mundane setting imaginable. You'd probably expect a grand spiritual awakening to happen on a mountaintop, right? Nope. It happens during a morning commute. The author is just driving to work in rush hour traffic when, for a single solitary second, their awareness violently expands. In one heartbeat, they describe physically becoming everything: the sun, the stars, the galaxies, black holes, the very fabric of space, and the intelligence behind creation itself. It's described as this lightning strike of infinite awareness, a massive surge of cosmic data flooding the human mind in a fraction of a moment. It made them feel as though they suddenly, inexplicably, knew everything. Now, as that flash subsided, their whole being remained completely charged, leaving the author with this massive, lingering question. What would happen if I could tap into this 24 hours a day? It's a wild thought, right? According to the text, it serves as a reminder that every single human being actually carries this exact seed of cosmic awareness. It's dormant, sure, but it's completely alive. And it really makes you wonder how anyone could possibly rationalize carrying around infinite awareness while just going about their everyday, normal life. Chapter 2: The Kundalini Cobra Rising During Morning Meditation. We now shift from the vastness of outer space to the profound depths of inner space. This second event describes an intense physical and energetic awakening that happened during an early morning meditation, specifically using what are known as Mafu's techniques. What started as this feeling of overwhelming joy quickly morphed into something way more ancient. The source describes sensing an actual cobra awakening at the root chakra. And it wasn't just a thought. It felt alive, luminous, and conscious. This primal energy then slowly rises up the spine. Naturally, the subject felt fear, but to let the energy ascend, they had to actively face and control that primal fear, trusting they wouldn't be harmed. Finally, this luminous serpent reaches the third eye, the pituitary gland, triggering another massive expansion of consciousness. The absolutely crucial point here is that, according to the source, this wasn't just some poetic metaphor. The author had heard about the Kundalini for years, but suddenly, this was a practical, inner reality. This direct experience essentially validated ancient Vedic scriptures for them. They realized, wow, these scriptures were describing actual physical experiences. The cobra is a true symbol of inner awakening. And, perhaps most mind-blowing of all, the realization that the entire universe actually exists inside the human body. The text argues that consciousness isn't theoretical at all, it's purely experiential. Chapter 3: The Unseen Visitor at Naval Special Warfare. For this third event, we're taken to a highly secure, incredibly grounded location, a Navy SEAL base. The author was actually working there as a programmer when reality fractured yet again. But this time, it wasn't a cosmic flash, and it wasn't internal rising. It was a physical, unexpected encounter with a being described as a human-reptilian hybrid. And this wasn't just a quick, out-of-the-corner-of-your-eye vision. It was a full-on, chronological event. First, the author walked down the main building stairs with the being right beside them. They reached the bottom and faced a security guard. Then, the two of them walked together all the way to the car, and the being actually rode in the passenger seat for 10 full miles. But here is where the suspense gets really intense. Remember that security guard at the bottom of the stairs? Well, when the author reached the bottom, the guard looked directly at them. In their head, the author is screaming, "Do you see what I see?" But the guard saw absolutely nothing. The being was completely invisible to the guard, yet entirely physical and undeniably present to the author. Now, you might immediately think, okay, come on, that has to be a hallucination, right? But the author completely dismisses that idea. They point out that they were fully conscious, sober, they sleep well, no drugs involved whatsoever. Plus, the being felt friendly, wise, calm, and honestly almost amused by the whole thing. The author firmly insists their mind was crystal clear and that this was a genuine, multidimensional interaction, representing actual contact just as real as talking to another human being.
Epilogue: The Burnt Circle in the Laguna Mountains.
Months later, this whole theme of unexplained contact continues. A guide named Zoran takes the subject and their family deep into the Laguna Mountains for a walk. They had absolutely no idea where they were going. After walking for an hour, Zoran suddenly stops. He turns to the subject and asks a highly provocative question. Do you see anything different about this place? At first glance, just ordinary forest. But then their eyes adjusted to what was sitting right in front of them. They were standing inside this massive, completely unnatural circle of burnt leaves, grass, and trees. Everything within this perfect ring was scorched. It wasn't man-made, and it definitely wasn't a natural forest fire pattern. It was exactly what you'd picture a UFO landing site to look like. Zoran just smiled. He didn't even need to explain it. This burnt circle was sitting there as a silent, physical confirmation of all those anomalous experiences the author had been going through. The Ledger of Awakening. Finally, the source document brings all these wild, seemingly disconnected events together. The cosmic flash, the luminous serpent, the unseen visitor, the burnt circle, it all synthesizes into a single, unified philosophy called the Ledger of Awakening. It lays out these core truths. Consciousness can expand instantly. The universe is actually inside the body. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a doorway you literally have to walk through. Awakening is totally experiential. Reality is multidimensional, and yes, beings definitely exist beyond Earth. It also teaches that guidance appears unexpectedly, your intuition is completely trustworthy, the universe itself is alive, and ultimately, we are never, ever alone. We wrap up the explainer with what the text calls Zoran's whisper, which beautifully sums up the whole stance of the source document. He says, "Traveler, the universe speaks in flashes, symbols, and visitors. You saw the infinite, awakened the serpent, and met a friend from another world. These were not anomalies. They were invitations." I love that. It frames these intense disruptions of reality not as random glitches in the matrix, but as deliberate, purposeful signposts designed to wake us up. So that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. If the universe really is speaking to us, if it's constantly trying to get our attention through flashes, ancient symbols, and unexpected visitors, the real question is, are you ready to accept the invitation? It's a huge question that really challenges us to examine the limits of our own subjective reality. Who knows, maybe you'll keep your eyes open just a little bit wider on your next morning commute. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.